Spirit called by many names, yet who is beyond all naming, we acknowledge your presence among us, within us, as us. We ask that you would attune our hearts and souls to your movement today, that you would open our eyes and our minds to new ways to see and act in our world. Where we are challenged, give us courage. Where we are struggling, give us hope. Where we are whole, give us gratitude. We pray for those who are ill, those who grieve, for first responders, and for those who don't know how to respond. For those working to provide essential services, and for those without work, shelter, or adequate food. Raise us up during these dark days that we may be light, and that through us you might shine healing, equity, peace, and renewal for all our sisters and brothers, and for all living beings. Amen, amen. Blessed be Ashe. May it be so. Wholeness, resilience. So these are our themes as we gather today. How might we find an even deeper wellspring of renewal in our faith traditions and in our spiritual practices that help us endure, even transform during this crisis? How can we care for ourselves while we also care for those who are harshly impacted, particularly the most vulnerable and marginalized? How might we live our deepest values now and when the crisis dissipates? Together today, we explore these questions and find in the faith journeys of three different speakers, nourishment and wisdom to renew and guide us. So just a word of a couple of introductions as we prepare for that. Particularly wanted to start by noticing and naming some of my sources of resilience, including some amazing people that I get to connect with. And feel free to wave when I mention you. So MIC's board of directors, all of our donors and supporters. MIC would not exist without you. So if you've made any donation to MIC at some point. Special gratitude to our foundations, Silicon Valley Foundation, San Francisco Foundation, and most especially Marin Community Foundation for all of your ongoing support. And certainly my coworkers, Janice Enick, Lynn Oldham-Robinette, and Mario Castillo for being with us, for all of their great work, and for really upholding MIC during this time by their dedication. So one other way, for how many of you is this your first MIC event? Yeah, great. So welcome. Just a tiny bit about MIC. We were founded in 1982, and MIC, the Marin Interfaith Council, is a respectful collaborative with a threefold mission to celebrate faith, advocate justice, and build community. We do that in a number of ways. One way is through our Love Lives in Marin initiative, which counters hate and bias with a campaign that promotes radical inclusion, regardless of religion, race, age, ethnicity, ability status, sexual orientation, gender identity, or country of origin. And how do we do that? By highlighting inspiring stories, particularly from persons in marginalized communities. And we also have, in that same program, ongoing discussion groups that build community and understanding across differences. MIC promotes wholeness through a monthly meditation featuring spiritual practices from a different faith leader each month. We have interfaith retreats, religious leaders gatherings, an annual fall event highlighting visionary work in our community to inspire us to be visionaries of hope who dismantle systems of injustice and embody the full promise of our faith traditions. And we also engage in a lot of advocacy and justice work to support immigrant families, for people living on the streets, older adults, to address climate change, just to name a few. So while all of our offerings may now occur online in this moment, the intention is the same as always: a world where everyone thrives and is welcome. And in that spirit, one other final initiative to let you know about that MIC is involved in and that you're a part of, and as our MIC community, is census outreach. To ensure that everyone is accounted this year as a matter of representation and public funding, but also because every human being counts. That's in keeping with our Love Lives in Marin theme where everyone thrives, is welcome. Every human being is valued. And on our website, under the social justice drop-down menu, if you click on that, there's a host of resources to help ensure that everyone is counted, including those who might be hard to count. And you also see Mario Castillo, our census community organizer, his information there and various videos. So feel free to check that out. It's on our website again, marinifc.org, under social justice. So those are just a few examples of the work of the Marin Interfaith Council. And again, we're so glad you're here with us today. We thank all of you who support us through your prayers and your gifts and your volunteer time. And we're so grateful to be able to join together in this way as we support one another in making the world a little bit more whole. So as we gather today, we're going to hear three different perspectives. And I invite you to open your hearts and minds to receive what is familiar and comforting, and to hold with gentle openness what is new or unfamiliar, or that you might not agree with. That's why we're here, to listen to each other with respect. And if anything you hear leads to a little tightness in your chest or in your stomach, that's normal. It's our human way of processing the unfamiliar. Simply notice it. Be kind with yourself and with each other as we hold everything today with compassion and openness. So today we're very, very grateful to have with us three speakers. Shivani Hawkins of Living Sanskrit, Rabbi Elana Rosen Brown from Congregation Road of Shalom, and Reverend Carol Hovis, former executive director of MIC. So basically our format today in the next hour is I'll introduce each speaker, and each of them will have a chance to talk. And afterwards, we'll have a chance to discuss in small groups what stirred within us when we listened to them. And of course, during this whole time, you're welcome to use the chat to have any comments, anything that's bubbling up for you that you'd like to share with the chat. You can do that, but we'll have the speakers spotlighted in our main window. So let's go ahead and begin. So our first speaker is Shivani Hawkins, whom I had the pleasure of meeting first several years ago when I was a student at the Chaplaincy Institute in our spiritual direction program, where she came and not only taught us really the heart and soul of Hinduism, but for me, she really embodied it in a way that I got it in my being. And so very grateful to have Shivani with us. She's a meditation teacher and multidisciplinary artist and founder of Living Sanskrit. Born both American and into the yogic tradition, she is devoted to preserving and accurately practicing ancient indigenous wisdom in modern times and non-native contexts. Shivani first heard Sanskrit in the womb, and not a day has gone by without it. She grew up immersed in Dharma culture, yogic teachings, and sacred practices under the guidance of her spiritual teacher and also her grandmother. So Living Sanskrit is a culmination of a long-held dream to keep this tradition alive and share its magnificent gifts with the world. Shivani started teaching meditation in 2001, and professionally a few years later at the suggestion of her spiritual teacher. Since then, Shivani has shared meditation with thousands of people at venues that range from corporate offices to hospitals to schools. And from 2008 to 2014, she was a fellow with the Berkeley Initiative for Mindfulness and Law, leading retreats and weekly meditation sessions at Berkeley Law School. Shivani is a prolific artist, photographer, and writer, graduate of the Waterfront Conservatory and Playhouse, a member of the California Bar, and has a JD from the University of Southern California and a BA in rhetoric with minors in theater, business administration, South Asian studies from the University of California, Berkeley. She lives with her beloved husband and baby girl in Redwood City, California, where she can be found dancing, gardening, listening to birdsong, and hiking in nature. Thank you, Shivani, for being with us today, and welcome.
Thank you so much. Goodness. I was like, I did all those things. It is such a joy and an honor and a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you, Scott, for inviting me. Thank you all for being here with me today. I like to joke around that Hinduism is the original interfaith path, because Hinduism is actually a collection of lineages and sects that don't always agree with each other, But there is a certain commonality, a certain common thread that unites the different Hindu traditions. But most of us do believe that there are as many paths to the experience of God as there are people. There's as many names for God, at least as many names for God as there are people. So it really doesn't matter for us how you approach the divine or how you pray. It's more that you pray. So I'm very happy that we're here doing that today. During challenging times, our tradition invites us to direct our energy and our attention towards that which is eternal, that which is infinite, that which is the most powerful, the most compassionate. Because as we strive to keep the experience of God alive inside of us and keep our attention focused there, the vastness of God is bigger than whatever challenge we're facing. And by directing our attention towards that which is infinitely loving, infinitely compassionate, we can anchor to that, and that anchor will carry us through the storm. In fact, as early as 5,000 years ago, or as late, you could say as long as 5,000 years ago, in fact, in one of the names given to God in the Vedic scriptures is that God is a raft. It's literally that which saves you from a storm. That idea of hold on to the raft. So there's different ways that we might keep our attention focused on God. So today I'm going to quickly kind of give you a taste of a few of those. So the first way that we do it is through the practice called swadhyaya, which is recitation and study of scriptural teachings and the wisdom teachings and the truth of the nature of reality as laid out in our various texts. And the reason we do this is that instead of running, the drama and the fear and anxiety, we want to fill our being with that wisdom and that truth, and to just keep, not just to read it intellectually, but actually we chant it because that sound vibration penetrates at a deeper level, and we're literally carrying that vibrational truth in us in the form of song. So I'm actually going to sing a short hymn for you. This one is called the Nirvana Shatkam, and it was composed by one of the greatest sages of our tradition. It's attributed to him. I mean, we say it's by him, Adi Shankaracharya, who was a great sage from the 8th century. So this is how old this hymn is. And it literally means, the title is the 6 verses of Nirvana, or liberation. These 6 verses remind us that our true nature is God. Who we actually are is the divine. There is no separation between us and the divine, and the divine state of perfect awareness and consciousness and eternal bliss is our true state. Everything that is transient, that we normally identify with, is not our true nature. So you can, as I'm singing, I invite you to read the translation of the chant. And I also want to say I'm not a trained singer. My voice is a little hoarse, but the beautiful thing is that when you're singing to God, it's an offering, and it really doesn't matter how you sound or if you go off key. So bear with me. Okay. Can everybody see that? Perfect. Okay, let me see if I can make this a little bit nicer. There we go. Okay, so yes, you can read along or just listen. Mano buddhya hankara cetani nam na cha shrotra jive na cha grana netre na cha vyoma bhumi na tejo na vayu chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Nacha Prana Sangyo Navai Panchavayu Nava Sapta Dhatur Nava Panchakosha Navakpani Padam Nachopastapayu Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Name Dvesharago Name Lobhamoho Mado Neva Meneva Matsarya Bhava Na Dharmo Na Chartho Na Kamo Na Moksha Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Na Punyam Na Papam Na Saukyam Na Dukkham Na Mantro Na Tirtham Na Veda Na Yajna Aham Bhojanam Neva Bhojyam Na Bhokta Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Na Mrityor Na Shankha Na Mejati Bheda Pita Neva Meneva Mata Cha Janma Na Bandhur Na Mitram Gurur Neva Shishya Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Aham Nirvikalpo Nihakara Rupo Vibhutva Sarvatra Sarvendriyanam Nacha Sangatam Naiva Muktirna Meya Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. So from there, so that's an example, like we're not any of these things. We are consciousness and bliss. We are Shiva, just one of the names for the Lord. Another practice, a shorter version of that, if you can't sing a whole scripture or text, is we do mantra japa. You might have heard of this, where you just repeat a short phrase, a short affirmation of the truth. So for example, this hymn contains ones. Shivoham, Shivoham. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. And this is called, oh, someone asked the name of the chant, is the Nirvana Shatkam. So you can repeat that, right? Or even Soham is another common mantra. I am that which cannot be named, cannot be put into form. I am one with God and God is one with me. Finally, if that gets too heady, right, and you're like, oh, I can't just keep repeating mantra and scripture, we have another beautiful practice called Kirtanam, which is devotional chanting. And this exists in almost every faith culture and tradition around the world. So again, it doesn't matter if you sing in Sanskrit or you sing in another language, you can do it in your own way. But again, here's an example. I'm sticking to the Shiva theme today. So, and it's a lot more joyful. And this is something we do throughout the day, especially when we're afraid, is we keep the name of God on our lips. This is where we draw resilience, because the name of God is itself God. So for example, Jai Jai Shiva Shambho, Jai Jai Shiva Shambho, Jai Jai Shiva Shambho, Jai Jai Shiva Shambho, Mahadeva Shambho, Mahadeva Shambho. Right, it's like I could sing that all day long. So that's an example. And finally, the last big practice that we do to draw resilience and support is the easiest and also the hardest. Is meditation practice. Taking the time to rest in the stillness of being, because being is itself divine. our being is God's being. And the word for meditation, dhyana, literally also means attention or focus. The tradition says it's very hard to learn how to meditate in challenging times because you're very stressed. So they say practice when you're not stressed so that it's there for you when you are. So if you haven't started learning how to meditate, maybe just stick to chanting because that's easy and you can start there. But these are, you know, 4 very traditional tools that my ancestors have used for thousands of years to get through everything from famine, war, you know, colonization, death, illness, loss, whatever. We draw resilience by, it's not so much that we have to find our own resilience, it's that we hold on to that which is always resilient, that which is unchanged, that which is eternal, and that is the divine. So as we anchor to that, from there we draw our strength and support. So in whatever way that you pray or sing or study scripture, let it bring you that comfort and that resilience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shivani, and thank you for inviting us into that space where our own souls can connect with the holiness that infuses everything that is our deepest blissful identity. So thank you. So one of the beauties of this program is we get to hear from many different voices. And our next speaker is Rabbi Elana Rosen Brown, whom is a great friend of the Marin Interfaith Council, and also happy that she's also my friend and now my neighbor who lives right down the street. So hello, Elana. I can almost see you from here. So Rabbi Elana Rosen Brown is a native East Coaster raised in Connecticut and is a graduate of the New York campus of Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion, where she was ordained as a rabbi in 2014 and cantor in 2012. Since 2014, she has served as rabbi cantor at Congregation Road of Shalom in San Rafael, where she oversees adult education and social justice work. She is the founder of Maker Marin, a nature-based Jewish program for young families, where she actively shares her deep love of earth-based Judaism, wilderness spirituality, and mindfulness meditation. Rabbi Elana currently serves on the advisory boards for RAC California, the Reform Movement's social justice leadership team in California, and the Interfaith Sustainable Food Collaborative. She is deeply grateful for the work and partnership of MIC and the Interfaith community of Marin. So glad to have you with us today, Rabbi Elana, and welcome.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? Just give me a high five, virtual high five. I'm just checking to make sure I'm unmuted. I am unmuted. It's an honor to be here, and I have such fond memories, of course, of our annual breakfast at Kol Shofar, and I trust and have faith that we'll join there together again in person, but it's wonderful to be here virtually with you, and thank you to all of you, and of course to Scott and Janice at MIC and the whole board and all of the amazing work you do to bring us together. And dear, dear Carol Hovis, it's amazing to have you here and some of the gifts of being virtual. And Shivani, thank you for that beautiful teaching. So much of it resonated with me and resonates with the Jewish tradition. As I wrote this talk, I imagined that this conversation, resilience in challenging times, I could have written a different talk again each day. There's just such a wealth of and a depth in all of our traditions, and certainly in Judaism. But this is what came forth from me at this moment to address this topic of spiritual resilience in challenging times. Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Holy Divine Mother, Ribono Shel Olam, ground and source of all being, I ask permission of this gathering, of the land on which I am standing, which I know is not my own, of our earth, of my forefathers and foremothers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, to offer a prayer this morning, a prayer back to you, our earth. They say it's the shortest and the first prayer for healing in the Torah. It's from the book of Numbers, a prayer of healing for our mother Miriam, a prophetess. Elna refana la, Elna refana la, Elna refana la, Elna refana la. But of course, we know prayers for healing were around far before we knew how to write, and certainly far before we knew how to write Hebrew. And yet I offer this prayer because it is what we have, and it is old, and many have spoken it before me, before us, and that means something. At some moments, at moments of greatest fear, when there are no words, when people are dying, when we wonder who will be next, when the cry of suffering breaks hearts, and it breaks our hearts over and over again each day, well, in these moments, a prayer can mean everything, or it can mean nothing at all, or perhaps something in between. Elna refana la, Elna refana la, the shortest prayer for healing, they say anyway, in the Torah. Perhaps it says it all. Do heal. Heal her. For God's sake, heal her. We will return to this prayer soon. It's never far from our lips anyway. Our religious traditions are all treasure troves and stores of wisdom, sources of energy, strength, and vitality. And of course, they are also other things. But for this morning, I'll put aside what's fraught or challenging in Judaism. Because when faced with an external challenge as great as this pandemic, I'll take the best and leave the rest of what my faith tradition has to offer. I'll mine it. I'll mine Judaism for every last drop of practice, wisdom, text, hint, riddle, laugh, prayer, song. I'll soak up the histories and wonder at what's been spoken and unspoken, what's been written about and what we can only wonder at. Stories told and untold, people who have suffered and worried, and also people who have thrived and found courage before us. They are all there, I do believe, holding us up and witnessing us as we put on our masks, as we shop only in early morning hours at Trader Joe's, as we thank the essential workers from 6 feet away, as we Zoom with loved ones instead of hugging them for birthdays, holidays, and tragically, Zoom with them also in funerals, hospital visits, and Shiva minions too. And I believe we are accompanied in all this by our tradition and our ancestors who have lived through great challenges before us. How can Judaism truly accompany us in our darkest moments when we truly are up against it at 3:30 in the morning when we can't sleep again, when we're out of work, when we're struggling in our marriage, when we miss our friends, when we're grieving a death? Pirkei Avot teaches al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed, al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. On 3 things the world stands, on the study of Torah, prayer, and practices of the heart, and acts of love and kindness. And yet a few passages later, another rabbi, Shimon ben Gamliel, shares, al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed, al hadin ve'al ha'emet ve'al ha'shalom. The world stands on 3 things, justice, truth, and peace. So maybe it stands on 6 things. And why choose after all? In this moment, I'll take all 6 pillars to help us stand back up again when we feel wobbly. I think of this as the wellness wheel of Judaism. How are we doing in the areas of our intellectual, spiritual, emotional, physical, financial, social, and environmental health? To restabilize when we feel wobbly, each of these aspects need care and attention. But of course, the therapeutic prescription for crisis management also happens to be the same recipe, the same prescription for living our daily lives at any time, at any place, in moments of celebration and moments of fear. The 6 pillars help us engage heart, body, mind, soul, and spirit toward care of self and care of community. Torah, we engage in wisdom teachings. Avodah, we develop or maintain a practice of prayer. Gimilut chasadim, we perform acts of loving kindness and cultivate a heart of compassion for ourselves and others. Din, we turn our hearts towards justice for the most vulnerable in society, which may be ourselves at this moment. In these times, it is as holy to ask and receive as it is to give. Emet, we refuse to look away from what the universe is revealing to be the truth of this moment, the truth of our public health crisis, the truth of our environmental crisis, the truth of massive economic inequities, systemic racism and xenophobia, the truth of impermanence, illness, and death. And finally, shalom. In the face of these harsh truths and in honor of them, we make daily choices in pursuit of peace. We are all interconnected. Kol Yisrael, V'kol ha'olam arevim ze bazeh. We are all responsible for one another. From Passover to Shavuot, the period we are now in, we Israelites wander in the wilderness, and so have we all been wandering in the wilderness of this new world. It's a time when touching into the practices of our tradition can be more grounding than ever. Studying a short text of Torah each day or Pirkei Avot each Shabbat, or maybe for you, it's reading the quote or comic on your daily calendar or rereading a beloved Harry Potter. Whatever is your Torah, embrace it now. Chanting morning prayers of gratitude. Moda ani lefanecha ruach chai v'kayam. I thank you, O God, for this most blessed day, for awakening me to life one day more. Or this one. Baruch atah Adonai rofecho basar umaflim la'asot. Blessed are you, universe, source of our health and strength. Or maybe for you, it's carving out 5 minutes of silent meditation, sitting or walking to take in the sun, clouds, sky, the green of the trees, the pink of new flowers. Baking a challah and dropping it off on a neighbor's doorstep, or leaving a thank you note for the person who delivers the mail. To begin with just one act of gemilut chesed, of loving kindness each day, which may be an act of kindness toward ourselves if life is just feeling too hard right now. These prescriptions can tend to sound pediatric when listed out, but for any of us who have continued or developed just one practice during this quarantine on which we can rely, we know that practices are profound. These spiritual technologies in all of our faith traditions are in line with the most up-to-date research on health and wellness, mindfulness, neuroscience, and interpersonal neurobiology, environmental sustainability, and community resilience models. They are life-changing and life-sustaining. But I need to say too, so that none of these become shoulds and more food for the superego attacks, that the biggest practice for me of this moment is to be able to put our hand on our own heart or the heart of another, to breathe and welcome ourselves with love. Judaism at one level offers therapeutic balm, a guide for difficult times that translates to healing and self-care. It also provides moral and ethical guidelines for relentlessly seeking truth, calling out injustice, pointing out inequalities in the system, and calling on all of us to take part in repairing what is broken in our world. For many of us, I know that these practices of justice are indistinguishable from self-care practices, that actually it is in discovering one's prophetic voice, speaking truth to power, and joining alongside others to fight for our collective liberation that we participate in our own healing and the healing of the world. And if ever there was a moment for joining hands and marching together, it is this one. In his book, The Community Resilience Reader, Daniel Lurch writes that there are 6 pillars of community resilience at all times and not just times of crisis. 6 pillars, he says. 1, people. The power to envision the future and build resilience resides with community members. 2, systems thinking. The ability to understand the complexity of interrelated crises and solve for them in interrelated ways. Adaptability. The challenges we face are dynamic and adaptation is an ongoing process. And 3, I'm going to go through these quickly because I think I'm running out of time, but I'll share this with you later. Transformability, sustainability, and courage. As individuals and as a community, we need courage to confront challenging issues and take responsibility for our collective future. So I share these today not only because they line up so well with the 6 pillars of Judaism I've already mentioned, but because on a deeper level, Judaism doesn't act for us just on the level of therapeutic balm. Living Judaism is a journey of transformation, both of the individual and of society. This journey does not make a real or significant distinction between times of challenge and any other time, but rather it sees the world as a university for the soul. I believe we are in such a moment, and I also believe this moment pre-existed COVID-19, and it will far beyond the life of the virus itself. When we call upon our ancestors and our tradition in this journey of transformation, we recall the great Lech Lecha of Abraham going forth. We recall Sarah laughing in the face of hopelessness, and Isaac on Mount Moriah facing death, Jacob wrestling with the angel or perhaps himself in his long dark night of the soul, Shifra and Puah saving Israelite newborns at the risk of their own lives, and Moses longing to resist the call from the burning bush, afraid that he could not rise to the challenges of his historical moment. And yet he does, and none of them do it alone. Our tradition teaches that while the prophet Miriam was with her people, while they wandered in the desert, they were never without water. A well of water accompanied her, and there for them everywhere they wandered. And the well did not only give them water, it had healing properties and truly was a source of life. But when Miriam died, the well of water disappeared, and part of the mourning process for their mother Miriam was figuring out how, for themselves, they could be their own source of healing waters. But Rabbi Moses Isserly reminds us that the waters of Miriam's well never fully disappeared, that in fact they flow through all the wells and natural springs every Saturday night, and anyone who encounters it and drinks of its water will be immediately healed from all of their afflictions. Elusive, this well of water, and yet still in our grasp. Like the quest for Miriam's well, sources of our individual and collective healing at times of grief and great challenge may be elusive, but they do not lie outside of ourselves or beyond this time and place. The quest for the source of our own healing and the source of society's healing is perpetual, an ongoing journey through the wilderness with glimpses of revelation and transformation. Elna Rifana La. Heal us, God, and may we be healed in this moment and in all moments. You are the source of our healing. We ourselves are the source of our own healing, and collectively we heal our worlds together. Amen. Keni Ratzon.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi Elana. Let's take a moment, all of us, to pause and hold what we've heard from Rabbi Elana, from Shivani, just in our own hearts and our own bodies, and notice what we notice. So our third and final speaker today is Reverend Carol Hovis. She has been a leader in faith communities, nonprofits, and community organizing for 30 years. Her ministry includes 9 years with youth and young adults in Fairfax, Virginia, 6 years as community advocate with the San Rafael Canal Ministry, now Canal Alliance, And from 2004 to 2016, she served as executive director of the Marin Interfaith Council before moving to Asheville, North Carolina to be closer to family. After 2 years of guest preaching and part-time pastoral leadership with a small West Asheville congregation, she currently offers spiritual direction, retreats, and Enneagram classes at Grace Covenant Presbyterian Church in North Asheville and online. She facilitates staff workshops at the University of North Carolina, Asheville, and leads retreats throughout the region. Carol recently returned from co-leading her 9th reverse pilgrimage to Cuernavaca, Mexico. And she lives with her husband, Chris Highland, another dear friend of MIC and former head of the Marin Interfaith Street Chaplaincy. So, hey, Chris, good to see you. And he's also a wonderful author. I was just, in fact, reading yesterday his book of reflections, Free Thinker. So check that out as well. So she is with Chris Highland, who is also an author, teacher, and humanist celebrant. And her website is carolhovis.com. And just want to say also, Carol has been a wonderful friend and mentor, first involving me at the Marin Interfaith Council. And it was 4 years ago at this event, the prayer breakfast, that was Carol's last official MIC event and my first official one working for MIC. So I'm so grateful for Carol, for her friendship, her support, her guidance, for all that she did to make MIC what it is, because it really is her leadership that made MIC what it is today. And we're so grateful to be able to have her join us today from Asheville, North Carolina. So welcome, welcome, Carol.
Thank you, Scott. Come back over one more time. No, it's okay. Just wanted to say hello. Let them hear your voice.
Hello, everyone. Love, peace.
Okay. All right. So before I say anything more, I want to invite what Scott started, and for us to take a couple deep breaths. Our sisters, Shivani and Elana, have given us so much already. So let us just take a few moments to feel our feet on the ground, on the earth, and just take some of those deep breaths. If closing your eyes is helpful, do that. Breathing in and breathing out. Scanning our bodies for where we are feeling open, where we are feeling spacious, where we feel some peace, to breathe into those places. Breathing in and breathing out. Also, where in our bodies we are feeling some stress or tension, to breathe into those places. Breathing in and breathing out. No matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, we can always come back to breath, to ruach, to the divine presence within us. Breathing in and breathing out. Just take a few more deep breaths. And again, notice where you're feeling distracted. And just breathe into those places. We have much to savor. So, as Scott said, it was 4 years ago this week that I had my last public event with you. And I'm even going to put on my wonderful shawl that was presented that morning to me from all of you beloved ones. It was so great to be on the call early this morning and to see so many faces and names of those whom I know, and new names, new people who are enriching the life there at Marin Interfaith Council. Huge gratitude to Scott and Janice and to Lynn and the board for the incredible work you are still doing, even more so now in these, really these years since we departed California. I do want to say, because some of you will ask when you're in touch, that every day, Chris and I are glad, we are grateful that we made the decision we made. It has been the good and right decision every day. And we miss you. We miss Interfaith and the way it flourishes in the Bay Area, in Marin and beyond. And just hearing Shivani and Elana and seeing each and all of you and the congregations and communities that you represent there's a grief, there's a missing, a longing, and a yearning, which is part of that letting go that we all have to do in our lives. Particularly, I do want to say that the people and experiences that I carry with me that have formed who I am today, now, here, are San Francisco Seminary and Spiritual Direction Program, the Canal Ministry, Canal Alliance, Marin Interfaith Council, Marin Organizing Committee, and beloved Cuernavaca pilgrims who actually are watching from all over the country this morning. So thank you again for this invitation. So the word resilience. Some of you might remember that I like words and etymology. So I looked it up, and there are two primary definitions for resilience. There is the capacity to recover, and there's a related to toughness, and there is the capacity and flexibility of a substance to spring back. So again, there is a capacity to recover quickly, which talks about toughness, and then there is the flexibility of a substance to spring back into form. The Latin for resilience is re, and salir, to jump back. So these are two distinct qualities of resilience. There is toughness and there is flexibility, elasticity. And I was struck by how these two distinct qualities of this word really illustrate the dance that we are being called now and have always been called to do as humans. We were created for this dance of toughness and capacity and flexibility and an ability to bend and to move. And when we talk about spiritual resilience, we are really talking about an ability to hold this paradox in tension, this paradox between toughness and flexibility. It is not something that comes naturally to us as in our mammalian brains, but it is something we have to learn how to do. That difference, that paradox of knowing when to use our capacity to act and knowing when to breathe, to pause, to sit back right now, to sit back, to pause, to breathe, and to relax, and to sometimes to surrender. Knowing when to act and knowing when that flexibility of letting go, of surrender. It's an inner knowing. I'm struck by my siblings, sisters, Shivani and Elana, reminding us of that inner knowing in Hinduism and Judaism. And we have it too in Christianity. We haven't always been so good at teaching it. And that is where I draw my source from Jesus of Nazareth, was his inner knowing that is our inner knowing of when to act with toughness, and when to pause and be flexible, and to sit back and to breathe and to relax. It's hard right now. We live in a country, in a culture where too often toughness is what dominates. Too often leaders, whether they are elected politicians in Washington or business leaders with meatpacking plants and cruise ships, and even religious leaders in faith communities, have too often acted impulsively, indiscriminately, causing great harm to ourselves and to one another. This is not this is not spiritual resilience. So as a consequence, this global pandemic and this economic crisis have caught many off guard, ill-equipped, ill-experienced with this spiritual practice, the spiritual resilience of when to be flexible and when to be tough. If people aren't doing their spiritual work, then there's not an ability to hold the paradox. So we have people with poor judgment who are lacking good leadership. And what we need is more flexibility and surrendering our egos to the reality of what is. How can we learn? How do we know when to act and when to pause? When to let go and when to relax? Like I did in the moments there in the beginning in my Enneagram teaching and spiritual direction, we always begin with breathing and with body awareness. It's about strengthening that spiritual resilience. It's about developing our inner observer, that compassionate inner witness that can watch and know when are we becoming attached to ego and personality, when we need to get underneath the fixations of our personality. How is your personality doing right now? What's showing up for you in your body? What questions is your ego asking about what I'm saying or what you've experienced thus far this morning? Breathe in and breathe down deep. Acknowledge the thoughts, the feelings, and the sensations. Notice where I am becoming attached, and begin to let go, to practice that flexibility, that elasticity, that pliability that the world so desperately needs right now, spiritual resilience. I've heard that people are using the language of hammer and dance to describe what we're going through right now, about how to deal with the spread of the coronavirus. Yes, it is like a hammer and dance, the hammer of the toughness, the dance of flexibility. And we have to be doing our spiritual work for us to know when is the hammer and when is the dance. So how does this play out? How does this look? What does this look like in our lives right now? Well, it's very cool because my mom is on this Zoom call this morning. I didn't know if she's going to be able to do it, but she was there at your time, 8:50. And that's one reason we moved here. We moved here to be closer to her. She will be 89 in August. She lives independently in a senior community where she is still allowed to leave during this pandemic. So over the past year, my husband and I have been encouraging her to stop driving. It hasn't happened yet. So during the pandemic, I have been going each week to pick her up to go grocery shopping, and she waits in the car. Getting my moment there from Scott. So last week, I learned that she had driven to Ace and Staples to get a new coffee maker. Talk about essentials, maybe not. And I was very direct with her. I was very firm. I was tough with her about our concerns for her driving during a pandemic and not wearing a mask. And so I said my piece, and then I had to let it go. I had to surrender. Well, Monday of this week, I received an email from my mom that she has made the decision to give her car to my sister and family in High Point, North Carolina. I couldn't believe and was filled with admiration for her courage to make this decision. Each and all of us now are being called to do a lot of dying so that there will be new life and new birth. That we have to come back to that inner knowing, that spiritual resilience. May it be so for each and all of us. Blessings.
Thank you, Carol. So invite us all to take a moment again to notice, just to tune into our own mind, heart, body. What's been stirring within us? What have we found inspiring or nourishing? Is there anything we found unfamiliar or challenging? Just to notice.
In this time of great physical, emotional, and spiritual need, may all of those who are ill, in pain, struggling financially, who are grieving, find sources of support, connection, and love. Shivani.
Oh yeah. May we remember the eternal presence of divine grace. May we always seek refuge in the divine name. May we pray that we allow divine love to flow through us and serve all beings in all the realms. We pray that our spiritual practices and good actions uplift the suffering of all beings. May all beings tangibly experience the fullness of divine love, divine power, and divine peace. May we all remain in holy oneness with the divine, in holy wholeness with that which can never be broken or destroyed. May we remain in perfect union with the source of all life.
May we go deep inside and find that inner wisdom to know when to act, to know when to pause, and to surrender. May we find that inner strength to be honest with ourselves when our ego is driving, and when we can begin to breathe into our inner essence, our divine beingness. May we find strength within so that we may be resilient without. Give us love and compassion and steadfastness so that we might meet ourselves and one another with open hands and open arms, figuring out what is ours to do and when it is ours to let go. Breathing in and breathing out, may it be so.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imro amen. May the one who makes peace bring wholeness and healing to all.
The outer is whole, the inner is whole. From wholeness comes wholeness. If wholeness is removed from wholeness, only wholeness remains. May there be peace in the spiritual realm, peace in the natural realm, peace in the inner realm. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
In all of the dying and the death, may we find our purpose, our place, the dying to old habits, the letting go, that our essence remains, that our spiritual resilience calls us forth into essence and into our oneness. Amen. May it be so.